الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه وأعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة وأرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى ومن يعصهما فإنه قد غوى وإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيء إن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن خير الأمور عوازمها وشر الأمور محدثاتها كل محدثات بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة كل ضلالة في النار أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى لخلق السماوات والأرض أكبر من خلق الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى إن كل شيء خلقناه بقدر وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى وكل شيء عنده بمقدار وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان صدق الله العظيم. My dear brothers and sisters, when I had the privilege of being before you the last time, I reminded myself and all of us about one essential aspect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's grant of stewardship, of khilafah to us. That is the responsibilities that we owe toward each other as fellow beings. And I place that in context with respect to getting to know truly and understand from the perspective of caring and compassion and truth and justice, both within our community and outside with people of all other traditions. And there we focused on the important need in view of the decline in civil liberties and political rights around the world, the watches that we have with respect to ethnic cleansing and potential genocide happening regarding the Uyghurs in China, the Rohingyas in Myanmar, the Kashmiris in the Kashmir region, and then the mass delegitimizing of citizenship, of human rights, and the oppression of refugees and minorities, and the role that we have to play in standing up for truth and speaking out and acting in pursuit of justice. Inshallah, we will continue to do that. We see the deteriorating conditions, what is happening in Syria, Palestine, Iran, Iraq, Kashmir, and Myanmar, and China. That continues, and we need to be vigilant, and we need to be standing up for the brothers and sisters who are suffering there, and in all other regions, the concerns of communities within our country too. Today, what I want to do is remind ourselves of another element of this stewardship. Another important element of this being granted the position of khilafah, of stewards, and that is the relationship to our environment. As we enter this new year, this new decade, if you look at it that way, 2019, over 100,000 weather records were broken in the US alone. We've seen the crazy heat leading to the warming trends that we have seen, the warmest ever July, the raging California wildfires, the devastating flooding in Nebraska, everywhere else, the rising temperatures, the low sea ice, and the other climate factors which have impacted life so negatively. We are all aware of over 10,000 scientists who came together to declare a climate emergency. with nations trying to get together to come up with a consensus which they failed to achieve when the United Nations Global Cap 25 Summit got together, recognized the climate emergency, but people could not commit to taking action on a global basis because personal interest, national interest, material interests were involved. So we have to confront the fact that this climate change is more severe and accelerating faster than predicted. The last 5 years, the last decade being the hottest ever in 150 years of measurement. We've seen the impact around the world. What we are noticing with the Australian bushfires with over $200 billion of damage, 1 million animals impacted, scores, thousands of people displaced. The typhoons in South Asia, recently in Philippines, the earthquakes, the torrential rains in unexpected places like last week in Dubai. Discussions are going on. Discussions are warranted. Actions are warranted in terms of reducing the human impact on the environment. The use of fossil fuels, the carbon emissions, and the move toward what many consider this new 21st century to be a net zero economy. I bring that up, brothers and sisters, because this is not just a topic for discussion by others. It's not a topic that is for social or political discussion or at a national or a global discussion level. I bring this up because this is a matter of concern to me and all of us as Muslims. This is part of the amana that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us as stewards of this earth. Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu bi qadar. Verily all things have we created by measure, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicates. And we have produced therein everything in balance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us. وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفْعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. And He has raised the heavens and imposed the balance. أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ. So that you do not transgress this balance. And the ayah that I began with, لَخَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the power of His creation and the mysteries of His creation in creating the entirety of creation is beyond just the focus on the creation of mankind. لَخَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَكْبَرُ مِنْ خَلْقِ النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. It is bigger, huger than just the creation of mankind, and we are told the majority of mankind do not understand this, they do not recognize this. The signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shares with us in all that has been created. Have you not seen that God is glorified by all in the heavens and on the earth? Such are the birds with wings outspread. Each knows its worship and glorification, and God is aware of what you do. The role of animal kind, and then the connection to the environment around, and the role that we play as mankind. It is a tremendously important responsibility for us to keep in mind. The understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created everything in this universe with a purpose, with a balance, with a measure. Nothing has been created in vain, without wisdom, without value and purpose. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeatedly reminds us of this. We have not created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them carelessly. We have not created them but for the truth. The Islamic vision revealed in the Quran and exemplified by the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is one of a universe. Everything in the universe created, imbued with value and a balance that we need to understand. The understanding that the universe was created to serve the one Lord who sustains them all by means of interaction between them. And Allah defines the miraculous cycles of life and death. God, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, that splits the seed and the date stone, brings the living from the dead and the dead from the living. That is your God. How do you not recognize this? We are cautioned to be concerned about this. So we need to keep in mind that all created beings, we included, they serve a purpose for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in performing their ordained roles in a cohesively designed environment and society. And this is what leads to a symbiosis amongst the cosmos that we all are a part of. The understanding that the common good is a principle that pervades the universe. And it is an important implication of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power in His creation. So let us be reminded that as Muslims, as part of Allah's mankind that is created, we have two important elements of obligations. One is, of course, the connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the proximity, the taqwa that we talk about, and the relationship with Allah. The other aspect is also tremendously important. How do we relate to what is around us? How do we relate to mankind that we are part of? And how do we relate to the animal kind and nature around us? And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom in granting us the khilafah, the stewardship on the earth to human beings. In addition to being part of the earth and part of the universe, we are also the executor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands related to the balance amongst creation. So man is a manager of the earth, not a proprietor, a beneficiary and not a disposer. So we are granted the stewardship to manage the earth in accordance with the purposes intended by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best extent that we can fathom. To utilize the resources that are given for one's legitimate benefit without keeping the benefit from any other aspects of creation, whether it is mankind or animal kind or plant kind. And the Prophet ﷺ reminded us repeatedly. In a tradition, in the collections of Imam Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, "The world is beautiful and verdant, green, and verily Allah has made you His stewards in it. And He sees how you acquit yourselves." The gauntlet is thrown for us. We are told that there is beauty in nature. It needs to be sustained. And we are made stewards of it. And we will be tested by how we acquit ourselves in this. The use, according to the Islamic traditions, of the earth, the resources of nature, are conditional then. We must appreciate the balance. We use it only to the extent it benefits, and then we save it, preserve it, maintain it for the benefit of all around, including the growth of nature itself. And the Prophet ﷺ emphasized this repeatedly. The traditions we are all familiar with. Let us just be reminded. Where he said, if any Muslim plants a tree or sows a field, and a human, a bird, or animal eats from it, it shall be reckoned as charity from him. So we are told, look around you. There is a need to protect and nurture the environment. And when we do that with the right intention, we are told this is part of the charity, the sadaqah that we are expected to give. If anyone plants a tree, the Prophet ﷺ said, neither human being nor any of God's creatures will eat from it without it being reckoned as charity from him. And that tradition we are all familiar with. If doomsday approaches you while you have a seedling in your hand, let him plant it. This has other interpretations too, but here the understanding in this context is clear. We have that obligation to nurture and protect the nature and environment around us, even if the perceived actual doomsday approaches. So that is such an important element of it. The approach of Islam toward the use and development of the earth's resources, it's very important, brothers and sisters. There is a tradition related on through Ali ibn Abi Talib, the fourth caliph, where he was approached by a man who developed and reclaimed abandoned land. Before I even get to what he said, think about that. At the time of the advent of Islam, somebody approaches, the man's commitment is to what? To develop and reclaim abandoned land. I was struck by that. We think this is something unique going on now where land is being reclaimed. This is happening hundreds of years ago in the tradition and history of Islam, that people were dedicated to this objective, looking out for land that has been abandoned. It should not be left alone. What should be done for the benefit of society in that regard? And then when he asked, even when the man was doing this noteworthy objective, discharging it, he asked for guidance. And the Caliph at that time said, partake of it gladly. Benefit from all this gladly, so long as you are a benefactor, not a despoiler. This, brothers and sisters, so concisely lays out the foundational principles of how we as stewards of nature need to behave. He said, partake of all of these resources that Allah has given you, so long as you're a benefactor, not a despoiler. So long as you are a cultivator and not a destroyer. Very important for us to keep in mind, particularly in these days where we are all committed to material excesses. This takathur that we are all driven into. And I point the finger at myself because we are all part of it. I am part of that. The way we use these resources so indiscriminately because they are there and we want to accumulate things. I want to keep buying things and I want to keep things in place even if I don't use them. All of that is part of this where we are told, be benefactors, not despoilers. Be cultivators, not destroyers. The earth has rights over us. The Prophet ﷺ reminded us. The Islamic traditions dictate nurturing the environment around us as a means of shukr for the blessings that we are given, and as a means of ibadah, because protecting those and using them for the benefit of others, nurturing them, leaving them, is an element and an aspect of our ibadah, of our worship. The understanding that the earth, the plants, the animals are to be treasured and nurtured by mankind as blessings and gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the air around us to be treated as the property of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gifted to us for proper use. Deliberate contamination of air, the pollution issues that we are seeing, we have a role to play because we have an obligation to maintain that resource as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the rights of the earth is to make it come alive with green vegetation and the thriving life that comes from vegetation, relying on the proper use of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gifts of land, water, and the environment. In this regard, brothers and sisters, what is fascinating is I was reminded about when I first came to the United States 40 years ago. I was struck by how these forest reserves were put on, and I was impressed, thinking, what a wonderful concept, right? This society is advanced. It thinks about making sure that plants are protected, you don't get to destroy. And then when we go back and learn about the Islamic traditions in this regard, it is inspiring and illuminating that the concept of harams, areas which are inviolate, the example of Mecca and Medina around where native plants are to be protected, wild animals cannot be disturbed. The concept of himas, which are established protected areas. These are part of the Islamic history. Himas, which are supposed to be left alone and nurtured so that they sustain themselves, these rangelands and plant and wildlife. Left alone and nurtured. And we are proud, we should be proud inheritors of this legacy, brothers and sisters. And cannot end with this without emphasizing the need for us to focus on avoiding waste. إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. We are warned that those who use in excess, those who waste, these are brothers of the devils. That we are falling in the trap of the shaitan by going in for excess and using things without having that constraint. So there, the Prophet ﷺ emphasized this so repeatedly, that avoidance of waste is key to one of our obligations of stewardship. How do we use water, food, greenery? All of that needs to be taken into account. But quickly, let us be reminded of the time when we speak about food, because we have food all around us. We are constantly amongst it. The Prophet ﷺ, when he reminded Jabir radiallahu anhu to clean up all traces of food on his plate, to eat them all, in fact, to even lick his fingers, the understanding is that one does not waste, and one does not know which crumb of food carries Allah's grace in it. And the understanding then that the shaitan stands next to an eating person, and what is left on one's plate then remains for the devil that he looks forward to. And the recognition that even when there is legitimately left food, we don't just throw it away. It is to be scattered to feed the birds and the animals. And there you have these lofty practices of the wise Muslims. When food crumbs are left over, they accumulate them and then take them out and throw them into the lakes and oceans around, so that at least the fish around there, the sea life, benefits from it, and we are not just throwing things away. With respect to water in particular, brothers and sisters, the prohibitions to avoid excess water for washing, cleaning, even doing wudu, it's a strong obligation from us. Remember, as I end, when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas one day doing wudu, he said, "Oh Sa'd, how wasteful you are." And the Sahabi responded saying, "Ya Rasulullah, can water be wasted even when somebody is doing wudu?" And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Yes, even if you're using the running water of a river, be careful in your use." So brothers and sisters, as the world around discusses climate change and the commitments to zero emissions and avoiding the fossil fuel use, all of that, we have a role to play. And I hope that I will be reminded, and all of us, that we need to be taking the stance as Muslims who are informed and realize this is part of our religious obligation, part of our khilafah, part of our stewardship, that we need to be looking out for the environment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the wisdom to appreciate the glory of His creation in all its wonderful depth and wisdom and mystery, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us truly understand our role in conserving the resources and protecting the balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the power of this message to understand and to speak for it and act for it in furtherance of it as proud Muslims and inheritors of this wonderful message from Allah and the glorious ways of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Amma ba'd, ya ma'ashar al-muslimin, qala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala al-nabi, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin bi'adadi man salla wa sa'a. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin bi'adadi man qada wa qam. Allahumma salli ala jami'il anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala sa'ir sahabati wa tabi'in wa khulafa'i rashidin wa ibadullah salihin. Allahumma aidil Islam wal muslimin. اللهم قو إيمان إخواننا وأخواتنا في كل مكان، خصوصا في فلسطين وسوريا ولبنان وچين وميانمار وكشمير وإندونيسيا وماليزيا وفلبين وإيران وعراق وأفغانستان وهند وباكستان وبنغلاديش وكل أفريقيا وكل أمريكا وأستراليا ويوروب وفي كل مكان. اللهم قوي إيمانهم وثبت أقدامهم وانصرهم على عدوهم. اللهم أشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين وارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم ارحم والدينا ووالد والدينا ومن له فضل علينا في الدنيا والآخرة. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم فرج كروب المسلمين وعامر روعة المسلمين واستر عورات المسلمين. اللهم لا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا. اللهم لا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا. اللهم لا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا. آمين يا رب العالمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر. أقيموا الصلاة.